Now, we get to Aaron Rodgers. We waited a little while to get to this, but not nearly as long as everyone is waiting on a decision from him. He's a free agent. We know about the Vikings, the Giants, and the Steelers. You need to hear this. On his podcast, longtime Steelers defensive captain Cameron Hayward saying he's not going to any lengths to recruit Aaron Rodgers.
I ain't doing that darkness retreat. I don't need any of that crap. Like, either you want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler or you don't. That's simple. That's the pitch. Like, if you want me to recruit, that's the recruiting pitch. You know, Pittsburgh Steelers, if you want to be part of it, so be it. If you don't, no skin on my back.
Okay, so he's not all that excited about the proposition. In the meantime, our Dominique Foxworth likes the idea of Rodgers playing in Minnesota and thinks the four-time MVP should go to great lengths to make that happen.
If I'm Aaron Rodgers, I would go play for the Vikings for free. I would league minimum, sign me up. The reason why I come to this opinion is, and it's easy for me to say that he don't need no more money, but I think that's what's more valuable to him right now, or which should be in my mind, is rewriting the end of his career. I think it would really benefit him to go somewhere else and kind of make over his image. It's risk there, but I think that it's the best situation to do it.
Okay, I wanted you to hear both of those before we get started, because I think they both inform the conversation we'll have here with Harry, J-Mac, and Lewis. I will start with you. So you hear Cam Hayward basically saying, if he wants to come play here, let him come play here. Yeah. I'm not bending over backwards. And you hear Dominique saying, if you're Rodgers and you're concerned about the way you are going to be remembered, I would be moving heaven and earth to get to Minnesota. What's your reaction?
Well, I think starting with Cam, look, I think with all players, and generally when you're just talking about players when they get later in their career, look, the greater your talent is, the more tolerance people have for you and what you want to do off the field. Aaron's not at that point in his career anymore. He right now is not at the height of his powers to where you go, look, I don't really care what he does off the field. I don't care how many controversial things he says. I don't care how long he makes us wait. We'll wait forever because his talent is at that level. He's not at that level anymore. He's still a good quarterback. But now the conversation has shifted. Most of the news he makes has nothing to do with how he plays anymore. And players have a hard time with that now, especially an organization and a player like Cam Hayward, who really embodies everything that the Pittsburgh Steelers are. So he's not going to sit there and bow down to Aaron Rodgers and be like, hey, you know what? We can sit here and wait for you forever because you know what? You can take us over the top. He probably doesn't feel as though he can at this point in his career. As far as Aaron is concerned and what Foxworth said, look, I don't think Aaron really cares about what we feel about his legacy. I think he could give two you-know-whats about how we talk about him in terms of his career and what it will look like, or rather what people will say about him when it's all said and done. For Aaron, I think for him, he's just concerned about what's good for me. I think that's all he really cares about at this point.
You agree with that?
So, yeah, to a certain extent. I think from a prideful standpoint, though, of understanding that I went to a New York Jets organization to be the savior, and I didn't have the ability, or I fell short of saving that franchise and taking them to a place where they thought I can take them by coming there. I think from that sense of things, that's another reason why Aaron Rodgers still wants to play football, is because you want to go out on top. You want to go out with a better ending than what we've seen in the New York Jets uniform, because everything we think about Aaron Rodgers in that uniform, there's nothing positive about it when you look at the scale from top to bottom. Towards Achilles, and then, last season didn't start off great. He played better down the stretch of the season, but it wasn't great enough for them to get enough wins to make the playoffs. Now, I want to address the Cam Hayward situation, because we're talking about a 14-year veteran, a guy that's a second-generational kid. Lewis, you played with his father, a guy that brings his hard hat and his lunch pail to work every single day. He's not kissing nobody's ass to come play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You want to be here because you want to be here. And I think the frustrating part for a guy like Cam Hayward is that Aaron Rodgers could help that football team. But he's not going to be jumping through hula hoops. And to Lewis's point, when you're not playing at an MVP level, the tolerance that people have for you has now lowered.
And I think for Cam, it goes further back than just Aaron Rodgers. You think about a few years ago, they draft Kenny Pickett, and all throughout the year and through training camp, is it going to be Mitch Trubisky? Is it going to be Kenny Pickett? As a guy on a defense, a leader on a team that is led by their defense, you get tired of hearing that question. Then last year, you bring in Justin Fields, you bring in Russell Wilson. All season long, it's about the quarterback position. Now, since the offseason has ended, it has continued to be about the quarterback position. And now the next topic at hand is Aaron Rodgers. So for Cam Hayward, you're like, we would love to have Aaron Rodgers, but at the same time, we're not going to sit around and just wait for him.
I have responses to both things that have been said here. Let's start with the football one, because I think the other one is a little more nuanced and require a little more time. Cam, I understand Cam saying, I don't want to bend over backwards. I understand you saying he's no longer an MVP. He's by far the best option they have, right? I mean, we just saw what happened to that team last year. He's by far the best option they have. And so if I'm him and I'm interested in winning, I might be a little bit willing to kiss some. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'll kiss his hand, maybe.
Kiss his hand.
You know what I'm saying?
And I agree with you.
You got. Look, Aaron, come help us. We need help so badly.
Yeah. And I've said originally. Remember, it was a couple weeks ago, about a month ago. I said I think they need one another. Aaron needs a place like that where he can really just focus on the football. It's really not about you going in there and trying to manipulate the organization and form it in your image, because that organization is already set in terms of how they want to do business. So he needs that. They need to level up at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
He is still, you're right, he is the best option that's available, and he does give them a better chance to win. And that's what makes it frustrating, I'm sure, as Harry's talking about with Cam Hayward and as J-Mac is talking about, where they're saying, look, why are we waiting? Yeah. Why don't you just want to come play for us? You know why? Because he thinks there's a better option out there.
And Greeny,
that's why.
And I would argue that this is Cam's best pitch to Aaron Rodgers, where I'm not going to go roundabout and say all these things. We're about football here. Right. And when you hear these words coming from me, you understand that. And that should make you want to come be a Pittsburgh Steeler even more, listening to the leader on that football team say those words about you being a part of the organization.
Okay, I'll buy that part. The other part about Rodgers not being concerned about his legacy, I think, is a bigger and deeper conversation that we'll dive into as we go on. In the meantime, the quarterback...
All right, 4 different times across 4 different SportsCenter broadcasts on 4 different days, I have written a VO about Aaron Rodgers and waiting on the future Hall of Famer to decide where he'll play next season, and about the different teams waiting for him to make that decision as well. The Steelers and Giants are waiting, with rumblings that the Vikings could also certainly be interested in the 41-year-old's services. Here, at least statistically, is what these teams are waiting for. Rodgers, hands down, one of the all-time greats, just hasn't played that way in a long time. Over the last 3 seasons, ranking 29th in QBR, 27th in completion percentage. Obviously, the season-ending Achilles injury in 2023 factoring into all of this. Now, Steelers veteran Cam Hayward was asked whether he would go on a darkness retreat to try to recruit Aaron Rodgers, to recruit the GOAT to come to the Steel City. Here's what Hayward had to say.
I ain't doing that or darkness retreat. I don't need any of that crap. Like, either you want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler or you don't. That's simple. That's the pitch. Like, if you want me to recruit, that's the recruiting pitch. You know, Pittsburgh Steelers, if you want to be part of it, so be it. If you don't, no skin on my back.
All right, Louis Riddick is with us here, our front office analyst and all everything NFL-wise. Coach Louis, you hear that from Cam Hayward, and it does evoke sort of this timetable that both franchises might be on. How long is too long for the Giants and the Steelers to wait on Rodgers?
Look, Randy, I think already subjectively it's already been too long because, look, Aaron already knows what the circumstances are. He already knows what the offers are going to be. He already knows what the situation is. He knows where he's at in his career, and he knows that these football teams need him and that they would like him to be a part of the team. So it's really pretty cut and dried that way. I think what winds up happening here, though, is, like, everyone knows that he's holding out for maybe the potential to possibly join a team like the Minnesota Vikings, where he feels as though he can get with a better football team. And look, NFL teams don't take to that very well. They don't like playing second and third fiddle, especially when they consider you to be someone who's on the backside of your career, whose skills are declining, and really you don't have the cachet to act like that anymore and make them wait. Look, Cam Hayward, I promise you, he's not the only player in both of these locker rooms that has the same kind of feeling. Like, look, quite honestly, at this point in his career, we don't know if we want him anyway with all the other drama that comes along with him. And now he's going to hold us hostage like this? I promise you he's not the only player who feels the same way. And I know this for a fact, that there are fans in probably both of those cities who go, no thank you, we'll move on to someone else, simply because of this kind of circus that always surrounds everything that seems to be going on with Aaron at this point in his career.
Okay, so let's go from the old vet, right, to the young guns looking ahead to the NFL draft. Louis, who do you believe are home run picks in the top 10?
Yeah, this was a good question. And look, there's 2 guys for me.